coding and English, I think these are the two very critical skills that we're going to need. And that's part of the reason why we're trying to do this. And we do other things as well, but I think coding is very important, and so is English, because that's a communication medium. And it tends to be considered much more as a tool, which it is. And yet, I think there's a lot of things that's behind it. You know, how to think about many things, how you approach a different agenda and different issues. So I think you will have a little bit of a glimpse of what we're trying to do today. And we don't need any PCs or anything today. It's much more like how we approach this kind of thing. And as you may know, software is not really strong in here. Not too many people are familiar with it. And I think I was just talking to Kani, who is the co-founder of this place, and why is Japan so much behind, so to speak? Why is not understood the importance of it? And we have quite a few hypotheses, but I think it's much better to start something rather than just talking about it. So I hope you will have a lot of fun. And let me introduce Young, who is a co-founder, right, here. And she's very good at explaining the coding and other things in a very simple and easy to follow language, interactive. So I'm going to hand over things to Yang, and we'll have fun. Go ahead.
Thanks. Well, honored for us to be part of the last SINCA event for 2019. Thank you all for spending your Friday night with us. I know that you could be out, but instead of being in the other side of Roppongi, we are here in this basement learning how to code. Before we get started, I want to ask why you all are here. So, who here is an engineer, but maybe you don't know JavaScript? If you could raise your hand. One person? Cool. How about people considering being a software engineer, or you just want to learn how to code? Some people? Okay. And how about people who work with software engineers and don't know what they're talking about? Anyone? Cool. And then number 4, people who are just here for curiosity. Awesome.
The 5th reason, why, how many of you are here because you don't have anything else to do?
So, a program is a set of instructions. So the verb, programming, is writing instructions for a computer, right? So whenever you say, oh, I'm coding or I'm programming, you're writing instructions for the computer to read. You're a writer for the computer. And we use these, something called programming languages, to write these instructions, right? So these instructions for the computer, we use programming languages to tell the computer what to do. So once upon a time, programming languages looked like this. Zeros and ones, because of a switch, right? On and off. Things got a little bit better. Someone invented an amazing thing called an assembler. And it took the zeros and ones and changed them into a little bit more than zeros and ones. So this is what we call middle level language. And it was still really difficult to read. So there was a woman named Grace Hopper. She was a lieutenant in the US Navy. And in the 1940s and 50s, she wrote a program called a compiler. And what the compiler did was translate human-friendly code, so code that was easier for humans to read, into the zeros and ones. So this program took easy-to-read code and changed it back into computer code, machine code. So her compiler was revolutionary, and it led to one of the first programming languages called COBOL. COBOL is still being used today. Grace Hopper allowed us to move from here to here. High-level language. Okay. To review, low-level language is the ugly zeros and ones, the machine code. This middle language was a little better, but still pretty ugly. Now, whenever you hear someone talking about Java or Ruby or C, they are all talking about a high-level language. These high-level languages are all thanks to Grace Hopper. So these are just examples of high-level languages. Python, Java, PHP, Ruby, JavaScript, Perl, COBOL, Swift, C++, C#, anything else that you probably hear, that is a high-level language. So we went from machine code to JavaScript. JavaScript is a pretty widely used programming language. It is a high-level language, which means it is much easier to read than the zeros and ones. Okay. I want to emphasize, programming languages aren't actually built for computers. Right? Zeros and ones are for the computers. Programming languages are for us. Programming languages are built for humans. It's built so that you and you and you could read it, right? And there's a program called a compiler that turns it into code for the machine. So I want to talk about why JavaScript. Today you'll be looking at some JavaScript code, and it is just one of many different kinds of languages. So the reason why we use JavaScript is because everyone has a JavaScript engine on their computer that they use every day. So what is this engine that I'm talking about? Because whether you know it or not, you experience it every day. And also, a lot of what we experience on the internet now is because of a lot of the advancements in this language. So, JavaScript is a high-level programming language, and you all know what it means. It's a language that gets turned into machine code later. It's a language that is easy to read for people, right? It's one of what we call the 3 core technologies of the internet, the World Wide Web. The other ones are something called HTML and CSS. So if you've heard of these, now you know the third one, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Anytime you go on your browser, you are looking at a combination of those 3 things. We're going to be reading this bit of code today.